Welcome to the NLP Talks podcast, bringing you inspirational stories along with a good dose of potentially life-changing NLP strategies. I'm Laura Evans, multi-award-winning NLP trainer, and I'm on a mission to help you unleash your potential in business and life. I'm so glad you're here. Pull up a chair, listen in, and let's get started on revealing more about this transformational NLP toolkit. Great to have you here for the next episode of the NLP Talks podcast. Pull up a chair and get a pen and a piece of paper, because in this series I'm helping you get the inside track to building your coaching or people helping business with confidence. Now today we're going to be talking about sales. And before you tense up, this is not a brace yourself episode. The episode is designed to empower you to step forward and to start to have conversations with people about how you can help them. Because sales is not something separate from your coaching. Sales is what allows you to coach. Marketing creates visibility, and we covered that in the previous episode, and sales is about helping you to create a sustainable business. If you care about impact and freedom and long-term success, we need to talk about sales properly. This is an episode that I know a bunch of coaches and people helpers will just skip over, because the thought of embracing a sales conversation is currently too scary. I want to give you the courage in this episode to start to ask the questions that enable other people to buy from you easily. We're going to cover in this episode why coaches often avoid sales, what it's really costing you, what selling is and isn't. I'm going to talk about discounting and positioning and the need for follow-up conversations without pressure or salesy tactics. In this episode, I want to also talk about the importance of targets, because what gets measured gets done. So, let's get into it. Let's start by talking about why people avoid sales. And let's just pause to normalize this for a moment, because if you are considering becoming a coach, are already a coach, or indeed have another modality in the people helping industry, my guess is that you didn't wake up one morning and think to yourself, I can't wait to get into sales. You got into this because you care and because you want to make a difference. And somewhere along the line, you absorbed some beliefs about selling. Perhaps that selling is pushy, and to be successful at selling, you need to push hard. Or selling is about being manipulative. Perhaps you've got the idea in your head of the dodgy second-hand car dealer. I always think of Del Boy and opening up his coach. Anybody want to watch? Anybody want to watch? And none of them work. You know, selling perhaps for you is something that you maybe find awkward, or maybe it's a values thing for you and you think that in your head you've equated selling with being greedy, and that's not who you want to be. Instead of asking clearly whether somebody would like to work with you, what ends up happening is people become overgivers. They just keep giving and giving and giving even more, in the hope that giving more means someone will just ask you whether they can work with you. Sometimes people just avoid the price conversation. Now, I never want to talk about price first when I'm talking to someone about my product or service, because this is not a commodity which you can buy anywhere else. But you need to be willing to have the price conversation, because even if you have a conversation and you build loads of value and the client sat there going, yeah, I really want this, they're going to get to the point of saying, that sounds absolutely amazing. Before I say, yes, I'd like to proceed, can I just check how much is it? And if you start with the, which by the way, we've all done at times, then not being willing to have that conversation or to state your price fully is going to cause you problems. I've heard sales calls in the past where when I do sales coaching with people, I often will listen back to their calls. And what happens is they deliver the price and then go on to go, and I offer payment plans. And actually, if you'd like a discount, I can do that too, rather than stating the price and pausing. and waiting to hear what the other person on the other end of the phone has got to say about that. Perhaps rather than asking clearly for the sale, you say to people, go and have a little think about it. I mean, there's no pressure, there's no rush, and the person just goes off the end of the phone and you never hear from them again. Or maybe not being confident to ask whether someone would like to work with you leads you to avoid follow-ups because I don't want to call them again because, well, what if they say no? Let me tell you, maybe is worse than a no in a sales conversation. I would much rather get someone to the point of saying either, yes, I want to work with you, or no, thank you, or no, it's not the right time, or no, not now, or just no. I'd rather have that, because then that means that I'm not wasting my time trying to keep in contact with this person and starting to help to answer their objections and answering their questions. I'd rather no. And actually, there's a great book that I'd recommend you go and get a copy of. It's called Go for No. And you'll find it on secondhand bookshops, Amazon, I'm sure. And if you are concerned about hearing no, that is the book for you to read. So yeah, definitely do that. So the question though is, what's it costing you by not asking the questions clearly? Because my guess would be it's costing you an awful lot. And if you're not already running a business, it's about to cost you a lot if you don't get this right. The good news though is you are here listening to this podcast episode, I hope with a pen and a piece of paper handy, because loads of value is going to be in this episode that's really going to help you get off on the right track. Now, what is selling not? So selling isn't about closing someone, right? If you do a good job in a sales conversation, the client should get to the point where they're almost closing themselves. Now, if you're not familiar with this idea of closing in a sales conversation, it basically means when you've closed the deal, as in you've said to the person, would you like to go ahead with this? And they've said, absolutely. That's a closed deal, right? So a lot of people in years and decades gone by used to be able to get closing courses that you could go on. What a waste of money, because if you're having to put all your effort into closing, as in that's the last 3 or 4 minutes of a phone call, let's say, it's probably a bit more, but let's just say that, then you've missed the previous 15, 20, 25 minutes you've been on the phone, because ultimately it all leads up to the question of, would you like to go ahead? Selling isn't about talking the hind leg off a donkey. A lot of people, when they get nervous, talk a lot. You want to be listening more than you're talking, certainly at the very beginning of this conversation. You want to be asking questions like, what's caused your interest? And, it's great to hear from people that are interested in my coaching. Tell me a little bit about what it is you'd like to achieve from coaching, or how you would like my support. These types of questions. Selling isn't about feature dumping. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this in a moment, but every single product or service that you sell will have both features and benefits. Selling is not about telling people about every single feature of the thing that you're selling. Let me take an NLP practitioner course. I've sold many of these over the years. And if I sat here and told you every single feature of an NLP practitioner course, you would have fallen asleep by the time I finished. There are loads of them. This is why listening is more important, because if I hear your problems, your challenges, your dreams, your aspirations, then I can start to sift through the features of my, in this case, NLP practitioner course, and can go, actually, I can help you with that. Actually, did you know we can help you with that too? And then people start going, oh, okay, this is how you create value. Sales is not about trying to manipulate people. We'll come on to that as well, or ripping people off. It's really not about that. Selling to me is about getting clarity. I need to hear what it is that the person is looking for, and then I need to decide whether the product or service that I have is the right solution to that problem. And then we have a conversation. And if it's not, then I've got to be courageous enough to say, thanks very much for your call. It's been lovely to talk to you. I just need to let you know that I'm not sure that this program is going to be right for you. And then I'll say something on the end. I'll point them in the right direction. So let's talk a little bit about features and benefits, because this is a huge one and it's a very easy mistake to make, and it's also a very easy thing to fix when you know about it. So let's be very clear. People don't buy features, they buy what the features get for them. They buy outcomes, right? So let me give you an example. Let's put ourselves in a retail context and let's say we're selling mattresses, okay? There are lots of retailers all the way around the world that have made a lot of money out of selling mattresses. But when a customer comes into the shop, you're not really selling a mattress. You're not selling the number of pocket springs it's got or the fact it might be hypoallergenic or memory foam. What you're selling is a great night's sleep. You're selling waking up in the morning refreshed. You're selling someone having an easier back and not having back pain anymore. You're selling better energy. You're selling the benefits that this product or service can get the client. And if you can make this subtle but very vitally important shift in your head, then you are already ahead of the lot of competition in your marketplace. Now let's apply this to coaching, for example. So instead of saying, I have a 3-month group coaching program, and within that, you're going to have weekly catch-ups with me. There'll be WhatsApp support, and there'll be a monthly training session for you to attend, which will be recorded. These are all features. And whilst they're mildly interesting, people are interested in what these things do. So for example, you could reframe this by saying, well, in this 3-month structured journey, we're going to aim to remove your mental blocks that are keeping you stuck, build your confidence, and give you clarity that's going to stop you procrastinating and start you moving forward. Do you hear the difference? Features describe, but benefits are where we add value and help people understand what this coaching program in this example can give people. If you only talk features, people will start to compare price. But if you talk benefits, people start to not only hear, but feel the value that your product or service can provide. Now, another common mistake that I hear people make when they get to the "so would you like to go ahead" point within the conversation is they start discounting. I had a sales call once that I was reviewing for somebody, and she'd offered a discount before she'd even positioned the price. You can probably imagine my hands went straight up in the air and my head in my hands, because for what purpose are you discounting? That's a really important question. I remember one of my mentors telling me this little analogy, and it's always stuck with me, and I have always shared this with everybody since. You will spend the time putting a price on a product or service, okay? And in the training inside track, I share with you exactly how I price things, right? But you're going to put a price on something. And let's say I decide that I'm going to charge £400 to get rid of a phobia, okay? And let's say that someone gave me £400, but I had decided to do it half price. So what I want you to imagine now is not that I've taken £200, which is half the price. I want you to imagine that they've given me £400 in £20 notes, and all of those notes are now sat in the palm of my hand. Notice how that feels. And now notice what it feels like if you imagine giving them the £200 discount by me passing back to them the £200 discount in £20 notes. Now, just notice how that feels as you've got £400 in your hand and then you start giving back £200. It doesn't feel good, does it? Energetically, it doesn't feel good. It means you don't feel good about yourself. And discounting is not something that I am a massive advocate for. Now, there are times and places where discounts are helpful and launch offers and all of those things, and I do them and have always done them. But what you've got to think about, and this is a really, really good thing, if you're into energy or you're into emotion, then I want you to think about this. If my product or service is worth £400 and I've only charged you £200 and I'm going to give you back £200, If you're going to do that in your business, you have to ask yourself the question, what could that person do for you as the coach that is worth at least, if not more, than the £200 discount you've just given? This is about fair exchange. And so what I would say to you is, if you're going to give a £200 discount in this example, then think to yourself, what could that person do for me that's worth at least or more than the £200 discount? That could be that you ask them to do a video testimonial for you. It might be that you ask them to be willing to take phone calls from prospective clients in the future, assuming that you get a good result, which of course you'll be confident you will. It might be that you ask them to come to your trade show and stand there and be willing to engage with potential customers and support you in promoting your business. These are things that to me would be worth way more than the £200 discount that I gave. So if you are going to discount, make sure that you get something back in return that is equal to or more valuable to you than the £200 discount which you give. So to be clear, I'm not saying never discount. What I'm saying is if you are going to reduce your price, get something back that is going to be helpful and useful to you. Remember also, I've said this numerous times in this podcast series, people are rarely price sensitive, they are sensitive to value. So even if you do position your price and £400 is the price that you are going to charge, deliver the price and pause and wait for the response before you go in assuming that price is an issue, because let them talk and let them let you know. And even if they do come back and say, oh, that's more than I was expecting to pay, or yeah, that's going to be, difficult for me, then it gives you information which you can deal with. I am much more willing and able to give people more value than I am to discount. Discounting won't fix the sales problem in your business. Discounting becomes a race to the bottom. And I say this many, many times to our students when I'm doing business training. Now, follow-up is really important, and I want you to start to take a bit of pressure off yourself. Because here's the thing, if you want to get good at helping people, you've got to start to manage your emotional state when you're on the phone, face to face, or selling in any other way. If you are tense and het up, they're going to hear it in your voice. They're going to see it on your face. And so you want to remove some of the pressure that you perhaps are currently placing on yourself. Now, one of the ways that you can do this is by understanding the value of follow-ups in sale. A lot of sales are not done on the first call. In fact, in our businesses, usually it's the second or third call where someone says, yes, I'd like to go ahead. The industry data tells us that between 60 to 80% of sales happen after the second, third, or later follow-up that we might do. Most coaches have one phone call, they never hear back, and they never think to follow up and just assume that it's a no. And it's often not a no. In fact, most times where I hear no in my business, it's actually often a no, not yet, or not now, or those kinds of things. People need time. They need time to process. They need time to check their diaries. And so allowing someone the time and the space to do that is part of how you're building your brand. This is how you're setting out your store. But that doesn't mean a completely hands-off approach either, right? So it's not about being pushy, but it is about being professional. And if someone's not willing to go ahead today and they've explained why, just leave it with me, I need to sleep on it, or, I just want to have a think about it over the weekend, my immediate next question is absolutely fine. Is there a good time for me to perhaps call you on Monday so I can just check if you have any other questions? Oh yeah, that would be great. What time would work for you? Could you give me a call at 10 after I've dropped the kids off on the way to school? Absolutely perfect. I'll give you a call on Monday at 10 and I'll be more than happy to answer any other questions. That's effective follow-up. It is professional, it is helpful, and it's an opportunity to just check in with people and see if there's anything else you can do. this to me is about leadership. And if you're going to be a coach or you're going to be a professional, you've got to show up as the leader that you are saying you're going to be for this person. So remove the pressure from yourself to sell on the first call. If it happens, and it does happen, then fantastic. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean you failed. It just means you need effective follow-up practices. Now, if you're trained in NLP, then you already have a whole host of tools which you can use to help you make selling that little bit easier. First of all, you will know all about the power of setting your intentions. And this is really important at the start of any sales call, any day. In fact, you should absolutely have a sales target for yourself for the year that you break down into quarters, months, weeks, and perhaps even daily targets, so you know whether you're on track or not. If you feel awkward or you feel like you need a little boost of confidence, then there are tools in NLP to help you manage your emotional state. We have amazing rapport building skills, the ability to listen and really listen, to listen to what is not being said as much as what is being said, and knowing that the presenting problem is rarely the real problem. If you've ever sat in an NLP training room with me, you'll probably have been sick of me saying that as you've been going through your training. NLP professionals are good at calibration, sensory acuity, noticing how messages are landing, and they're brilliant at using language skills to really help people open up and start to get specific about what problem they want help to solve, and meta model questions are great for this. As an NLP professional, you'll also be able to change beliefs, and I would highly recommend that you find yourself another NLP professional to buddy up with and be honest with each other around your mindset around sales. What is really holding you back, and what role is mindset playing in that? Resolve those inner conflicts with parts integrations, change those limiting beliefs. If you're a master practitioner, you will have even more skills. You'll have all the information about meta programs, values level thinking, logical levels. I mean, the list goes on, and a whole load of conversational language skills. The thing is, you've got to spend as much effort managing yourself and making sure that you're using the tools that you're trained in so that you get to help more people. Not by manipulating, not by trying to get people to do things that are not right for them, but being able to have a conversation which is precise and which is where you're able to really show people how you can help. So this intention setting is though the very first thing. So let's say, for example, you wanted to earn £60,000 a year. You break that down to £5,000 a month. You break that down to £1,250 a week. Now, whatever your figure is, perhaps £5,000 in your first year is a more realistic target for you, because maybe you're still in full-time employment and this is a business you're fitting in around that at this stage, as opposed to a business that perhaps you are working full-time in. Resist the temptation to compare yourself to everyone else. Stay in your lane, design your business so that it works for you, make sure that your mindset is in the right place to support you, and then get your business education. That's why all our Inside Track training is available, right? And in our Inside Track training, our on-demand training, there is a full day on sales training, and I'm only able to start to scratch the surface on an introductory podcast episode like this. If you really want to set yourself up for success, then go over to the Confident Coach Business Academy. Just visit thelauraevans.co.uk and go and check out the courses that are in there. And there's a whole full day's worth of training within the Inside Track program, because that's how important it is in terms of helping you get the inside track to building your successful business. Now, in terms of what you do from here, you need to start to think about what is your plan. You can't create sustainable coaching businesses without selling. It's just simply not going to happen. So how are you going to get that marketing right, which is the bit that starts the conversation? And then how are you going to get yourself into a position where you're able to have the conversation? Instead of thinking, oh my goodness, I just hate sales and I just can't possibly do that. I can't be salesy. Then if that's your internal dialogue, that is going to get in the way. So how do we change that? What is it you need to believe about yourself that will free you up to help more people? When you get to the end of a conversation and you're about to ask whether they'd like to work with you, there are so many ways you could do that. You could say, okay, so shall we get our diaries and look for a time when we're both available where we could have the first session? Or, I'm wondering, do you have your credit card with you? Because I could take the payment right now and we could get started straight away. These are all ways in which you could ask somebody whether they would like to go ahead. There are so many different ways. Because here's the thing, when you can master a sales conversation, selling becomes so much easier. You have clarity, you are able to show up as the leader that you know you are, because you're already in this industry, because you want to be the role model, you want to be able to help other people, and you can then be of service to people. I can tell you now that if you are like any of the other clients that I've worked with in terms of this business mentoring and coaching that I do, I bet you that you are already way more capable than you give yourself credit for. If you can listen well, if you can ask great questions, and you can get your mindset in the place where it's okay for you to say, so would you like to go ahead? Then you are already ahead of a lot of the competition. Now, if you're serious about setting up this business properly and building it with confidence, then do go over to the website, thelauraevans.co.uk, find the Confident Coach Business Academy, look at Inside Track, and have a look, because I've helped so many people now set up successful businesses, and so much of what I know is in that course. If you are already a master practitioner of NLP, then there is an additional specialist, more advanced sales course in the academy called Sales Mastery. That is available for any master practitioner. All you need to do is send us your certificate. It doesn't have to be one I've given you. It could be from any NLP provider that is a reputable provider, like ABNLP, ANLP, and NELP. So if you've done what I call a kosher NLP master practitioner course, pop us over your certificate, and then we would gladly give you access to Sales Mastery. This is where I talk about the more advanced sales strategies around using values level thinking, meta programs, and will help you take your sales to the next level. That all said, you don't need that. Just get Inside Track and start using your skills to help you sell with ease. Now, there's a lot of talk about, will AI replace coaches? Will AI be able to replace therapists? And there are lots of people out there right now trying to use AI to coach themselves and getting AI to ask them questions. And in this next episode, I'm going to be talking about, will AI replace coaches, or rather, AI could expose some coaches and some of the AI coaching myths, because I think that AI can be a massive benefit to you in your business when used well, but I'm not so sure that it's capable of being as good a coach as you are. But I'm going to talk all about that in the next episode.